Hey chat, welcome back to another video. Today I just want to say first off, straight off the bat, it's not Zico, but it's Hiko. I'm sorry. Whoa, my goodness. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Pixel Art, I guess. Today we're gonna be learning about how to draw clouds, because I definitely haven't made a cloud drawing video before or anything. But I'm gonna be real, that one was pretty mid. You learned how to draw like one cloud. Yikes. There's a lot of different clouds, and this kind of video is not gonna be just like pixel art, but I'm gonna say that it's probably a good thing to better understand your subject in order to draw it. And I'll be doing a lot of kind of explaining it. Anyways, so what are clouds? Well, if you've ever seen a cloud before, or if you've ever known about a cloud before, you'll know that they're droplets. They're not like shaped like this, or more droplets are more shaped like that if they're falling down because air. The thing is about these water droplets is that they are shiny. They're reflective. They reflect light. And another thing they do is refract light. This part isn't going to be very important at all. But this part, the fact that light comes in and out, goes through it, that's important. Clouds are mildly transparent, and they're also reflective. They reflect their environment. Let's just say there's like a cloud in the sky, and underneath it it's like stormy, and then all of a sudden the ground is also like blue or something. Oh, you have blue reflection from the ground. Clouds are reflective. They reflect their environment, not to a substantial degree in comparison to like other reflective things, because clouds are very fuzzy and it's hard to get that reflection because most of the cloud is reflecting itself. But in very rare occasions you will see that occur. I did too much in my last thing. But they also refract light. If you have a cloud and the sun is behind it, refraction is going to be evident because you'll see what most of the time ends up being like a halo looking thing, and that's exactly what it's called. Now, it's not necessarily important for today's video because we're probably not going to be doing that in today's video, but that's generally how that works. So why are clouds ground? We'll say the sun. We're gonna put it in the corner because why not? Hot. The sun's warm. It gives off light. It heats up the ground. And if certain patches of ground are unevenly heated, like some are cold and then this one specific spot is hot, this is going to generally tend to have this cool air flow into this area. And because hot air is also light, it's going to rise. On its own, this isn't really going to do all that much. If this is instead water, and there is a just hot portion of the water, not only is it going to rise, but it's also going to take up moisture. When it gets to a certain point where the kind of atmosphere is cold enough, it will condense into a cloud. And this general shape, without turbulence, would look a lot like this. And so you would end up getting mushroom clouds, or at least the top of them. You could imagine that there is a stem here, but because this water closer to the sea is a little bit warmer, it's not good for condensation at all, so it doesn't really condense. You don't see clouds there unless it's foggy. You end up getting a mushroom cloud, but of course, you don't see a lot of mushroom clouds every time there's little pockets of thing here or there, because air is, well, it's quite turbulent. You might get here and there and here and there and here and there, and spirals all the way around. And generally clouds start falling as well. And what you end up with is these very swathy, spirally areas of cloud with their own individual turbulence in here and some falling parts. And what you end up with is a pretty common looking cloud. That's how you draw a normal cloud. These clouds are very, very common, and then it just kind of stays there, gets blown away. Wind shear can happen, so you could have air at certain levels moving faster, higher up. And this generally indicates incoming bad weather. There's a little cloud watching thing for you. They can also be the other way around, where the lower atmosphere is going to be faster than the higher atmosphere, in which case a cloud might look like this. Now, something to take away is that both of these clouds are moving the same direction, but they generally have this shape if they're sheared, because that's quite literally what shear is, if you've ever heard of like transformations and stuff and like mathematics. Now, we know that clouds happen because hot air rises, but what about a cloud that's already there and it gets cold? We know that cold air likes to sink. Eventually, instead of just having this cloud dissipate normally, instead it'll come down in this big swathy downdraft of rain. Rain and clouds are essentially the same thing, but rain has bigger droplets of water. If you see like a cloud droplet of water, they're like super duper, actually like incredibly tiny. This is probably not to scale. Rain droplets of water are like really big, and so they fall. Anyways, let's talk about weather fronts, because those are a massive, you know what else? A really massive basis to base on what kind of clouds you're making. Big of like tall clouds, short clouds, or whatever. These weather fronts are really important. Generally, there's going to be air. Let's just say that it's like warm. If there's cold air over here and it wants to spread out, it's going to spread out in every which direction. But because it's colder, it's going to sink. So it's going to be dense. And it's also heavier, so it has no problem pushing the hot air out of the way where it was already. It's going to get pushed up. And this updraft, not only is it up, it also has moisture. We have our first front, typically marked with triangles. These are triangles. And what you're going to get is your classic thunderstorm. This updraft will condense about like right here. Some of it will come back down, rain up here, and kind of level out, an overshooting top. This is what's going to give you your thunderstorm. Get some other cumulus clouds over here. Cirrus clouds. So these are what you'll see on the leading end. Cirrostratus clouds and cirrus clouds. Now, they're not always accompanied by a massive thunderstorm. Sometimes you'll literally just have the cirrus clouds and maybe some, cumulus clouds. But generally, cold fronts are very vertical. This is going to cause you to get your more tall clouds. To get a good thunderstorm, you need enough instability in the atmosphere. We just saw what happens if cold air approaches a pool of warm air. What happens if a pool of warm air approaches a pool of cold air? Why does this look different? Cold air had no problem pushing the warm air out of the way, but the warm air is going to have a lot of issues pushing the cold air out of the way because it's less dense. It doesn't have as much kick to it. Nonetheless, there's still a vertical component to it. So this air is still ending up rising over time. So it's going to cause moisture to go up to a point where it can condense into clouds. You're going to get clouds like nimbostratus, a very basic kind of storm cloud. Now these clouds are going to be generally flatter. Maybe more like this in reality, or even flatter. These aren't your crazy beautiful. This is my favorite cloud, cumulonimbus incus. And then these are going to go into like the rest of your stratus clouds. You have so much stratus clouds up here. These are like, you have altostratus, cirrostratus, all of these ones, all of these ones. These are your other wispy clouds. This is generally the more tame of the bunch, but you will absolutely get rain. If the atmosphere is stable enough, you're probably not going to get any clouds. Everything's uniform, nothing really condenses because nothing's really going any higher than anything else. Most of these clouds in the warm front are the ones that blanket the sky. They're flatter. Another thing, what is a stationary front? This basically happens when you have cool air, cold air, and then the warm air is like, well, I have nowhere to go except up, so I guess I'm gonna do that. Absolutely, this thing will rain. So will the cumulonimbus from earlier. This is an occluded front. This is where it gets fun. You get everything. You get the whole shebang. This is like a fuel for like your really, really, I guess, massive storms. If they're crashing directly into each other. If they're not, then probably not that much to worry about. You absolutely get rain from this. Tornado? Maybe. I don't know. Lightning? Probably. Oh, spooky, scary. Oh my gosh. I know you just saw me draw these like 7,000 times in the course of this video, but generally clouds aren't just bumps. Obviously that looks like bumps on the surface, and you would probably be right, but they're more than just bumps. It's not just a boulder, it's a rock. The cloud you draw the most is a cumulus, the humble cumulus cloud. These form everywhere. They do it because warm air rising, not Metal Gear Rising, warm air rising. Generally, there's going to be a central area, and this is kind of where your mushroom cloud column would come in. Most clouds are mushroom clouds in disguise. So you can talk about this is like the central column area. You can kind of imagine how air would come in all of these different directions. What that is going to end up doing is making your cloud point in like different directions. It's going to be like a flower almost. Now, obviously, you got to account for the fact that, you know, sometimes these are going to be on the downswing or whatever. But generally, these clouds up here at the top are going to point up, or here is going to point kind of to the side. This down here is going to point inwards because it's curling in on itself. When you put that together, we'll get a pretty basic cloud. Now, you can have more than one offshoot area, and that's generally what clouds have. Small, big, whatever you want to call them. And you can kind of just, oh yeah, there's a big one here, a small one here, maybe this one's higher up for some reason, and build a cloud out of that. It's going to be up here, this cloud here, and then it comes out here. I know I'm kind of cheating a little bit using the pressure sensitivity tool, but you can follow this generally in the same kind of way. This just makes my life easier. Recommend getting a tablet if you're drawing. You don't have to get an expensive one. Trust me, cheap ones work just fine. Now, if this is up here, this whole thing is up here, you're obviously going to get some things that are on the downswing. So you can actually get some pointing, clouds that kind of point downwards. It's all about that little bottleneck area. Now, once you get this, you have a great silhouette for a cloud. Now, remember what I said about clouds being very reflective. That means, just take a cube for example. Let's say that this corner is being illuminated. This corner, the light is coming directly from this corner. Now this, because it's facing most towards us, will be the brightest. This over here isn't going to be as bright because it's not facing as much towards us. That's how reflection works. This is going to be even darker. If you can see where I'm going with this, but this is very exaggerated on what's going to happen. In a lot of cloud pictures, you'll see these weird outlines show up here and there, but you'll see them. And that's generally what I would say about drawing these clouds. Just keep in mind that we have our little axis points of where the air comes in. That's right. Now, if you get a lighter color, you can actually leave out a lot of these edges, and it will still work. Now, because of this over here had like a little entry point in this here. These like little corner things are probably going to be farther in the cloud, and probably going to end up having more shadow on the bottom in these areas, because they're thicker portions of the cloud, bigger, more in-depth areas. And you can actually start to draw your things. Now keep in mind that these entry points where the hot air would come in, they are three-dimensional. They're not just two-dimensional like I showed you in the diagram area. They are 3D. So you will end up getting more of these like front-facing clouds here, and then they kind of diagonally taper off over there. This is generally how I draw my clouds. You don't have to do exactly what I do. You can make your own style of cloud, but this is how I draw my clouds. Or rather, how I think about them. Nowadays. Before, I didn't think about clouds at all, I just drew them. You can obviously get brighter colors. Step 2, reflection. Clouds are reflective, so if you have, see, this thing right here, this little dinky bit, is going to end up reflecting light and bouncing it at the bottom of this one, right here. So these clouds are going to end up, this portion of the cloud is going to end up being brighter because it got more reflection in it. I didn't do a great job at actually. I think I'm going to choose a brighter color so I can be less obtrusive. And don't have to do this for everyone, but I'm going to do this. Why? Because I have free will, and I can.
and I feel like it would look pretty. Now, obviously, you're probably going to want to do this on the top of clouds too, like, or at least on the parts that they're facing you. So it's going to give them their shiny look, because clouds, in effect, are quite shiny.
If you really want to go that far, you can add white, like a really white color.
That's up to you. It's up to the the artist on what colors they want to choose for the clouds. Now, keep in mind, different lighting scenarios which determine will change the sort of way that you see the cloud. I'm gonna say this right now. If you're looking at a cloud that is behind like a rainy cloud, or if there's moisture coming down from that cloud, even if it's really hard to see, it is going to tint the clouds behind it a yellower, more orange tint. It's going to become more orange. Water vapor tends to tint things so orange. If you've ever been to a beach and watched the sunset, if you compared it to a sunset in like a very dry area, you'll notice that the sunsets on the ocean or in an area that has a lot of water vapor are generally going to be more orange and like vermilion or whatever the heck kind of color you want to call it. They're going to be more orange than um, drier areas because water vapor, for some reason, I don't know why, tends to tint light orange in some way.
Obviously, this is like a little bit extra in the contrast. I might have to change that.
Just to make it more coherent. I probably should have started with a brighter color first, but I can leave some of the edges the way that they were before, and then just come in with the sort of like whatever secondary white color it was. I don't even know, this color, and come in some of those edges. Simplifying. Simplifying does make the clouds a lot prettier a lot of the time. Obviously, it won't work every time, but
Keeping things simple is a great way to start.
keep it simple. No, I totally just ruined all the reflection that I had, but I can probably bring it back somehow. Not really sure how, but well, if it was at a different angle, I could show you. But I chose the sunlight to be like kind of directly over this cloud.
What I found is that clouds will generally be ever so slightly darker than the sky in their shadow area.
And when I say ever so slightly, I mean like ever so slightly. Might as well be the same color as the sky. At least when I took a photo, it was. Took a photo of a cloud. Nice, pretty silver lining. And the transition color. We love transition colors. Now, I made the mistake of doing way too much on the shadow side last time, in my last tutorial, so this time, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to keep it simple.
Look at that. Does that look like a cloud? Probably. No reference to that. Let's try our hands at a cumulonimbus cloud. It comes up, comes around this way, that way, ends up hitting the stratosphere, or well, the tropopause ends up hitting the tropopause, and down here, it just doesn't go below there because it doesn't condense. This will cause this to spread out. Now, most like pictures online you'll see, and it's so infuriating to me for some reason. I don't know why. Like you'll get this really like, oh my gosh, like bulbous thing at the bottom, and then you'll get like a skinny little anvil cloud. They don't look like that. If you've ever seen like a one of those clouds in real life, you know they're like super wide. They're so wide.
They really do land. I'm just trying to I don't know. I don't here. Gotta go. Thanks right now. Somebody messed out, I think. The chef of that notice. Might get a lot in there. These are round shapes here. I might not be able to see them. They're really fine. Maybe like fine. So you're not you open up, you have the ocean cloud here. So obviously how we call this. The ocean cloud right here. So we do anything. You're one over here. Oh, no. Like now, if you want to apply lighting, let's say that instead of it being like from directly in front, because that's boring, we'll do it from like over here. Ish. We'll do it from like this angle or whatever. First things first. This is a much bigger cloud shape. So you might get a little less of definition and difference in colors. So I'm just going to illustrate that by using very solid white. Now this part under here is probably going to be less dark than say down here where the real shadow is. And that's probably because clouds are transparent. Once again, Now they're not super duper transparent, obviously, because otherwise you'd probably see through them. They're not like water, right? Like liquid water. They're more independent-ish. Now I gotta be careful here because if I don't do this right, it's not gonna end up looking like a cloud very much. Oh, there's also the top of it. Okay, now we can kind of like design the cloud formations here. We don't. Okay, I'm not gonna pay attention too much of the shadow because generally you're not going to see it all that much. Of course, I'm probably going to add some bounce lighting, at least. Like this is especially important for like these bigger clouds. To really like show how like. So why do I have an accent now? I didn't have an accent at the beginning of that. I don't remember having it. Is it gonna definitely show the light bouncing? It definitely want to show light bouncing off of the rest of the cloud formation. It's really gonna sell this as how bright this white is. These are really bright clouds. Really bright color. Wait, stop. There. Oh, no, wait. Wait. And oh my gosh, look, it's a cumulonimbus. So pretty. So beautiful. So demure. What about a cloudy sky? So, for some reason, they like to come in these waves. Slightly brighter color. This is the bottom of Nimbostratus. So they get kind of up into the cloud. I'm gonna bring this down a little bit more. And then it repeats again for some reason. I don't know. End up getting these waves. Obviously, this is like horrible because I'm doing this on a very much larger scale. Usually, I'm on a very small scale. Don't pay attention to like large area, but they do that. So that's kind of the whole Nimbostratus thing for the most part. But stratus clouds, they're a little more complicated because they're not like your other clouds that just form because of like these little things. When they hit the tropopause and these hot airs spread out, or these are airs that get pushed up really high on your warm fronts. They have lower parts that are generally thicker, and then they spread off. These are your cirrus clouds. Cirrus clouds are going to be your clouds that form from these cumulonimbus clouds, and they will also form on the edge of your warm fronts. They're like the first cloud you'll see when a warm front is coming in, and when a cold front is coming in as well. Sometimes they'll be really long. You'll get really long stratus clouds. They spread out every which way, but if you're looking at them from a distance instead of just from right underneath them, they'll generally look like these clouds. They'll curl. These guys are really high up.
if you're right under them, it might look a little different. Then they will shoot out forward and go away. I think they're hard to be bright. They don't stretch out as much. Cirrostratus clouds are even higher, and they're not necessarily wispy a lot of the time. They're weird. They can be so many different things. They can be shaped like this. They're not very bright a lot of the time. They can be shaped like this. It can be shaped like this. They're very high up in the sky, so sometimes you'll see them like cross-hatched, cross pattern. They could be look like this. Although I think that's actually a different cloud type. Thank you. But yeah, that is those are clouds. I hope you learned something from this video. I'm going to cut this down by like 800 million miles, cause this recording is 1 hour and 2 minutes, almost 3. Anyways, hope you have a good day. See you later. Bye.